This video is brought to you by HalloCasa. Our tool transforms independent local real estate agents to global real estate agents. Create your own profile for free and get contacted by international investors. Sign up with the link in the description. Hello and welcome everyone to our 159th session of HalloCasa. My name is Michael and today I'm talking to Jason Johansen in New York State. From soldier to syndicator, Jason's journey into real estate began while deployed in Iraq, reading investing books on guard duty. Today, as a founder of Meridian Point Capital, he helps investors build passive income without the stress of being a landlord. Jason, I'm pumped to have you on the show. Why don't you introduce yourself to audience?
Excellent. Yeah. Basically happy to be here and talk a little bit about my experience of, going from basically, not knowing anything and kind of just having this spark of inspiration to actually like every day kind of, living the dream that you see on that TV of, it's not exactly palm trees and sitting in the sand, just, letting everything happen. So there's a couple different angles there.
Absolutely. You started as in the US Army and you were there deployed. And first question, how did you come up to start reading on investment books and maybe not anything else? Maybe, I don't know, Kobe Bryant's career or Jeff Bezos' career or anything else? How did you come up into investing topics?
Yeah, I mean, there was, I think it was about six months maybe before I got deployed. I was staying up late and, back then we actually had like TV with like infomercials and it wasn't just Netflix, right? So it'd sell different things. And all of a sudden this TV show popped up with this guy basically saying, hey, you could live this dream and purchase all these houses and, a regular person could do it. And I was like, man, I'm like sitting here at 2:00 in the morning, like, I'm sold. I'm interested in this. So I went and I ordered the course, and then it kind of just sparked my interest. Then I ended up going. I was like, got everything I could get my hands on. I'd go to the library. I'd order books, and tapes, and CDs, and everything that I could get. So I had a good little stack of books that I brought with me that kind of were my dream someday. Someday I'm going to dream to do this, So it was kind of like a little inspiration.
And the first steps then, like, obviously one thing is theory and understanding. It sounds so easy. And even if you read about the struggles, you can't really resonate with it because you haven't felt it. What made you then, what was the moment when you said, like, hey, let me actually just like try it and how does it work? And then starting a syndicate and stuff. How does that work?
Yeah, I was thinking about that, and I think it was more like, there was some technical stuff in there, but I think it was more of that time frame, like getting into the mindset of, hey, you know what, anything's possible, and then kind of look back and, like, hey, that's what I've had. Like, I can get through anything. If a challenge comes up, there's different ways to do things. So it's kind of a lot of like not technical stuff I kind of like internalized, I think. And then that kind of, hey, when I was in the position to start learning and kind of growing, I kind of had that foundation where a lot of people get these challenges and they just give up. But I'd literally absorbed so much like content and books of like total mindsets and, the Tony Robbins courses that I was listening to at that time, and just like, hey, be this unstoppable person. Well, that's pretty much what you need in this business.
In the end, then you started with your first project, or how did everything in the first steps begin on your end?
Yeah, so it was actually, the way the story went is I got back home, and then one of my best friends from the time, I went to go visit him, and he was living in this really like nice apartment complex, like all these buildings everywhere, and we just stood outside and we were like, man, it'd be nice, like imagine who owns this, like somebody owns these properties where all these tenants are paying rent. hey, then he was like, hey, Jason, weren't you thinking about, doing something like that, with all those books we were reading? I was like, yeah, I got, no money and, I got the knowledge, but I don't even know where to start. So we basically partnered up and ended up finding a rundown fire damaged 10 unit building. So, my parents were like, yeah, you start small, like kind of, no. You don't do anything. I jumped all in and he put in all the money and the kind of the credit to buy this thing and rehab funds. And then I figured out how to change a toilet watching YouTube videos, so it was kind of learn as you go, like just kind of total hands-on bootstrapping, dollar comes in, dollar spent, you know.
And now fast forward, where you at right now, and what you're really like offering to your clients?
Oh, can you say that again?
Fast forward now, like where are you right now, and how many clients do you have? What are you offering, and what is your value proposition towards your client?
Oh yeah. So today, basically, we built the business where I got into property management. I built a property management business. I have my own real estate brokerage, and then in partnerships and kind of helping other people and other clients buy properties, and then they rely on a property manager to manage it for them. Uh, I saw this, I saw this need for people always have this. Hey, I want to get real estate to have this passive income, but it's never really truly passive because they're on the hook for the mortgage and okay, if the roof goes, you still got to put the 12 15 grand into a roof. There's always little things that the owner does even if they have a manager. So I basically formed this Meridian Point Capital to bring on in a legally compliant way where everything's transparent, where investors come in and have a truly passive investment. So it basically takes those challenges away and brings the investor, totally passive cash flow, and they're able to generate generational wealth without all that pain and stress and burnout.
Let us know a little bit about Rochester. It's in New York State. It is close to Niagara Falls, Buffalo. You have directly the Lake Ontario. For someone who has never traveled there, never been there, how can I imagine the entire region?
Yeah, so it's Niagara Falls is about an hour away, one of the natural wonders of the world. So it's that's always fun. And then we're right between Syracuse is another big city there. So Rochester actually was a big, like, originally became like it was a flour mill town. It was right on the Erie Canal. There's a lot of industry. Through the years, it changed. There was Kodak was based here, so we basically the camera revolution right out of Rochester. That's kind of now changed into more smaller technology startups, and we have a lot of like really strong like medical field with a lot of like research and development, and universities, a lot of education, and a lot of arts, very art centered. Great Philharmonic Orchestra, and just a small town, but then we have a lot to offer.
Your listings are in the area over there in exactly like basically in Rochester, but also a bit in the surroundings. Give us an overview, maybe they're also on the market, on the real estate market. Did you understand the question, or was I cut off?
Sorry, you couldn't. What you said about the listings?
Yeah. My question is, you are operating in Rochester. Give us an overview there of the market, of the real estate market, and maybe also sort of like an idea of the neighborhoods, how they are structured, and what I can expect there, and why maybe I also should invest, even though I might not be a resident in Rochester itself?
Yeah, so Rochester is a very unique market where for years we don't have the big appreciation from like the big major cities. So it was always like, 1-2% appreciation a year. It was we're basically our investments are based on cash flow. So we have, comparison to other big cities like New York City, which is about eight hours away, that our starting house for a decent house that doesn't need a lot of work is about 125 to 150,000 for a nice rental property, where you could get that over $1 million just 8 hours away, right? So we have lower price point properties where kind of when you get the financing and everything in place, you're able to then produce this cash flow. And up until a couple of years ago, the appreciation was just very slight. Over the past year and a half, we have experienced now where we're starting to catch up with the you throw a stone and everybody's earned a ton of money that just purchased something recently, so they're able to cash out and then reinvest into other properties. But it's also a very tight knit community. So pretty much everything in Rochester is about like a 15-20 minute drive. So it's not a huge sprawling, like the actual main suburbs and city are like really tight and kind of everything right near each other. So it's you have that kind of unique thing where that builds up the neighborhood and the community.
Can you even say that it's almost like, let's say, the sleeping room of Buffalo for many people, like you're traveling or working in Buffalo and then even doing the commute to Rochester and living there because of maybe a price fall towards Buffalo, or is that not the case?
Yeah, so it's pretty much like Buffalo, Syracuse, and Rochester. We're basically a completely different world from like down where New York City is. So we have relatively affordable markets in all three areas. If we do have Airbnb or kind of like some transient people, it's people like coming in for like medical or like parents coming in to see their students in college, kind of that thing. But it's, for the most part, people can find housing relatively close to the city. And then the surrounding areas there's a lot of farmland and kind of lower price properties in the rural areas. So that's always an option too. So if somebody can find something for probably 75% of the values here in Rochester, just a half hour, 45 minutes away.
Right now, your list, how much of inventory do you have right now in your listings?
Right now, listing inventory is pretty much tight everywhere. Like we just listed 2 duplexes for sale. Basically right next to each other. This longtime owner had built up this portfolio, and we talked to him a few months ago, and he was like, I think I'm not ready to quite get out of the game yet. He really enjoyed like collecting rent and kind of doing little repairs and everything. That he called us back up 2 weeks ago, and he said, "Oh man, yeah, I'm done. I want to start selling these things." He got a late night call around 11 o'clock, right? And the tenant was like, "Hey, you know what? You got to fix this gas. Gas? What's this gas problem?" So he went over there, opened the back door up, and it's this like strong gas smell. The whole kitchen was like filled with gas for how long? He was like, "What are you doing in this property still?" The tenants were like, "Well, my kids are upstairs sleeping." Like, no, get out. So long story short, so they had been doing painting without getting permission first, and they pulled the stove out and it put a little crack in the hose and it was leaking gas. So after that, firemen out there and the utility companies and all of this, he was like, "Okay, I don't need this anymore. I'm not going to be an active landlord. I got to start selling these things. So we had these two duplexes. We had the first showings this past Monday and Tuesday, and I mean, there's so much demand. We probably had about over 20 people through just within those 2 hours of showings. So it's kind of still very like so strong. So it's like there's not going to last long if you have something that's decent.
So you definitely have a housing crisis there in a certain way, especially, or is it only like particular for certain units, or is that overall that you see, okay, there's definitely a challenge of obtaining affordable housing or housing in general?
Yeah, I mean, good quality housing is always a challenge. Rental rates have increased a lot, and then inflation, everything's getting more expensive to repair, and insurance rates are rising. Straight from even like regular straight up homeowners in the suburbs, it's like people have these really low mortgage rates, and they don't really, unless they have to, they really don't want to move. Even it's a tough spot because they've built up a ton of equity for these rising housing rates. But if they move into something else, well, those prices are high too. And then their mortgage rate is going to be way higher than what they're paying now. So it's like there's always people moving, there's always people getting married or downsizing or need more space for kids. But it's just a very challenging market as far as inventory. Um, you know, it's just kind of the spot we're in right now. But then when something does come up, I mean, it's usually going pretty darn fast.
Mhm. Regarding the trends, where do you see the market going at the moment? Like towards maybe also the end of the year? Do you see like there's definitely coming more and more pressure on the market? Is it going into any certain direction? What's your take there?
Yeah, I mean, originally at the beginning of the year, the projections were that okay, as we'd go, interest rates would come down, and it would kind of open things up a little more. Uh, we're kind of seeing like it's not rising as much, and then I think some buyers are kind of last year there was buyers waiting. They were like, hey, I'm just going to wait until the interest rates come down in order to start looking. Um, I think they're not holding out that much hope for a dramatic increase. It's not going to go back to the 3% anytime soon, unless everything kind of and you want to buy a house there anyway. But so it's I think the hesitation is easing, so you're having more buyers come back, and then at the same time, different sellers were kind of holding out hope where you're like, hey, I really want to move, but maybe I'll wait until the interest rates come down. Well, they're not gonna wait for because they have to buy the next house. So them waiting isn't going to help them either. So it's kind of it's a slow trickle that hopefully then it eases up through the year. It's just there's a lot of uncertainty right now, so we can kind of go over that. But it's it's one of those things where hey, people are moving, people are selling, and then it's just connecting them together.
Regarding the buying process in New York State, can you give us a quick overview of what I can expect as a potential buyer?
Oh yeah. So as a perpetual buyer, somebody comes in and the first step that we tell everybody is figuring out, hey, are you going to pay with cash or financing? Kind of that is like the key step where you basically can't continue, with anything in a serious manner until you lock down your financing and how you're going to purchase the property. I explain it's sort of like your golden ticket into the park, and then the next step after that is then hooking up with, hey, who are you going to have on your team to help you? So people can go online and you can just randomly search for properties, but until you have somebody behind you to kind of tell you, hey, you know what, that street, might not be something you're interested in, or that property has, yeah, the pictures look really good, but what you don't see is this. So it's developing that team where you got the real estate professional, and then you start searching for houses. You find something, hey, the offers go back and forth, you get something under contract, and then here in Rochester, once we get property under contract, it goes to an attorney. So the attorney reviews it, and then they approve the contract. It's not a valid contract until the attorney approves it. Once that happens, then they handle all of the back end with the title searches and the kind of making sure the survey is ordered and all of the legal compliant things. If there's financing, then the bank gets involved and kind of orders an appraisal, and they check the value of the house, that independent valuation. And then it basically all comes together with the bank's attorney and your attorney come together, and they finish all the paperwork up. We do a final walkthrough to make sure everything's kind of the same that it was when we saw it the first time, and then closing day. So it's every process follows that same path, but then there hasn't been a single one that's the same. There's always different challenges and kind of things that pop up.
Do you think that there's certain tips and maybe also challenges which you can talk about for first-time buyers and say, listen, like, check out and watch out on those loopholes. Definitely make sure that you follow certain processes in order not to be surprised later on during the buying process.
Yeah, I mean, I think what the buyers don't really understand from the beginning is that yes, you have your down payment with your mortgage. So we have different lenders in here, they'll do 10% down, 20% down. So you think, okay, for $100,000 house, I have to have $20,000 for closing. The thing that's kind of missed sometimes is there's also closing costs. So you have your bank fees or your attorney fee, your appraisals, your taxes for recording the property, and so there's an extra, like, sometimes 5 to 10% where they're not really planned on those. So it's having enough money saved up ahead of time to cover all these costs, so you're not feeling stressed where you're like scrambling to get this together to make it happen because now you found the perfect property that you want. I think that's the second one too, is people hold off on the first step of financing because they're like, there's a lot of work to do there. I got to get all my financial stuff together and kind of like go back and forth with the bank or the lender. And that's a lot of pain. It's a lot more fun just searching for properties. But then all of a sudden they find the perfect property that they want. And then, oh, shoot, I'm not in a position to make an offer on that. That's exactly, so it's listening to the real estate professional, like saying, hey, these are the steps you follow. And then if you do those, you're in the best position to get what you want.
The psychographics and demographics of your investors and of your buyers and maybe also sellers, is it something special, or is it the basic normal investors? Do you maybe also have international investors who say, hey, listen, this is actually underappreciated, or maybe people who are looking from different states? You mentioned the underappreciation among other big cities. Maybe we have people moving now from California or even other states to Rochester to say, hey, listen, actually, I still get a bargain. Or some people who are interested in flipping. Do you see any pattern there regarding the psychographics on the investors?
Yeah, I mean, I've worked with investors from England, China, South Africa, and then basically all around the states too, from California to Florida to Texas. So I think the common denominator is people see that they like their areas that they're in. I was just talking to a guy last week that lives out towards Los Angeles, And I mean, that market there is just, it's so high in the price points that, I mean, you can't make things pencil out. There's no way to cash flow. You're buying completely on appreciation, which is basically the same thing as speculation. You have no security whatsoever because you're buying something for more than what it's truly worth at this moment. So it's,
And
yeah, long story, like, so on that one there, it's these people, they can't buy in their market, so they're looking for another market that can produce cash flow and stability and kind of give that element of, wealth generation that they don't have access to.
And I must say, I mean, I'm European, and when I see your listings, I see like a house, 3 bedroom for 164,000, which is like 100,000 euros, maybe 120 euros at the current state. I mean, you will, I don't know if you get that somewhere like in a good location in Europe. You get like maybe, I don't know, even an apartment in some areas. This is, in my opinion, now imagining I have a family, 2 children, maybe even one child. I am sort of like having an average salary. What would be there? My down payment would be like 20K maybe, or 25K, 30K, whatsoever. And then my mortgage payment would be, what is it? 3 to 4% of the interest right now? Or is it higher at the moment? 5 to 6-ish. So what would be like basically like my monthly payment and my installments there?
Yeah, I mean, for a typical like family, okay, you could find a mortgage payment and pay the property taxes for, somewhere maybe about like 1,500 to 1,600 bucks. But then if you were to be renting that exact same house, you'd actually be paying a few $100s more. So it's actually, the benefit is to then get into home ownership. But like, it's just a great opportunity.
And people just are in a way limited sometimes that they can't go into homeownership because they don't have the necessary funds in cash, or their credit score is way too low, or why is that? That basically like has still sort of a percentage of people just renting out or
Yeah,
renting.
there is, so like years ago, banks basically, oh, anybody that has a pulse could get a mortgage, right? And then people got into mortgages that they couldn't afford, and then it was a whole, that led to a whole issue. Over recently here, banks have been really kind of really strict on, credit score. They verify income. They want to make sure that people aren't overbuying what they could, realistically pay. So the current homeowners are really pretty well qualified and screened. Unless they lose a job or there's some kind of unknown situation, they're really, there's a thorough screening. So that credit score kind of kicks a lot of people out, and then the down payment. It's just, it's a lot of people in a lot of places. They're basically, they have, a lot of situations with kids. They're living paycheck to paycheck, and that saving for a down payment and kind of getting prepared for the whole home buying process is one thing that they're not able to get through the screening for.
Absolutely. How long does it normally take for, let's say, from first viewing to closure for homeowners or home buyers to buy a home?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes we could basically refer a buyer to a lender and get them pre-screened in a pre-qualification letter to buy a home within 24 to 48 hours. Every now and then, everything aligns perfectly, and the first house they go out to see that weekend, hey, we put an offer in, and it goes through. Other ones, hey, we've had a guy that it took him almost a year and a half to find something, and we probably wrote 20 plus offers on different things and multiple viewings. So it's kind of it really depends. Sometimes they get it.
Is that also when he's already pre-qualified as well?
Yeah,
Still?
so they get pre-qualified, that first step with the financing, they get pre-qualified, they're ready to go. The bank has basically approved them to start looking for homes. But then you have to find something that the seller is going to accept your offer for that maximum amount that the bank will lend them for that person. So, the bank might say, hey, you can buy up to $150,000 house. But then the houses that they want are 180. Well, they're going to be looking a lot, or there's 10 people that are looking for that same $150,000 house. So then all of a sudden, that $150,000 house gets bid up and it goes above what the bank qualification letter is.
Absolutely, yeah. Makes total sense. Let's talk about your investment vehicle. First question, what are the terms for me to work with Meridian Point Capital if I want to invest in easy cash flow generating vehicles and I don't want to be bothered with being a landlord and managing it myself? What do I need to have for a profile?
Yeah, so basically I'm looking to develop relationships with people. So the first thing is basically develop a relationship, really seeing what each person, what their goals are, and how that aligns with kind of opportunities that we have. There's some people that I speak to that, hey, you know what, they're looking to basically, make a quick buck and get their money back in 2 years and walk away. Well, we're looking more to develop a long-term, hey, over the next 5 to 7 years, kind of let's go in this together and kind of build a portfolio of properties.
And what is the process there? What do I need to do in order to work with you there?
Yeah, so it's then, okay, so the process is going through and figuring out goals and priorities. The next step is kind of showing exactly what we have to offer and kind of the story behind it all. So for us, you can get numbers anywhere. You can get, okay, everybody will give you a 12% return on, whatever, blah, 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 blah. But for us, it's basically, hey, we want to show kind of, we have a relationship with you, and then show kind of our history of how we work and what we've done and what we've built in the past, and kind of give it like a full understanding of the process and kind of what we go through and how we see a good deal. And then so they're comfortable before we start talking about kind of, okay, you need to bring this much funds to the table, or kind of like all of that stuff is. The story is basically greater than the numbers, because that really shows who we are as individuals and what we have to offer.
I understand. And I really like your elements on your website regarding the hidden secrets of real estate investing, and really making sure that you're also focusing on cash flow generation directly and making sure that there you have like your regular income. How can I imagine the contractual agreements there? Do you have, I don't know, am I like a limited partner? Do I have to have a certain, not SEC, but I have to have like a certain certification that I'm an official investor in the US? Is it like Reg C, or I forgot, to be honest, I forgot the terms there. What do I have to bring there in order to work with you? Or is it again on a case-by-case basis that you say, I listen, let's sit down, let's do it like a personal plan for you, and we go from there?
It's definitely sitting down with a personal plan, but then we also have on staff a SEC attorney that formed all the documents, and they're the one that basically crosses all the T's, dots the I's, make sure everything's in compliance. There's different requirements for people that live out of state, or people that live out of the country, and they basically work to handle everything that's needed and kind of, hey, any new requirements that pop up over time, they'll kind of guide us through that too. So it's it's all handled by an SEC attorney that's what they do all the time, just this type of investment.
Makes sense. If I have now maybe 50 to 100K on my bank account, and I say, Jason, let's sit down. I'm looking to invest in real estate. What would you, probably you need more information. I know it's a very like shallow and superficial number I'm giving you. But what would be like your process there and your advice on the first idea to say, listen, like let's go through this process, and would you recommend anything already, and do you have any tips for someone like that?
Yeah, I'd say like basically don't jump into anything, like just right off the bat. We would basically take it slow and kind of make sure that those funds are directed once there's full understanding and full comprehension of what they're investing in. So it's not something where, like, hey, we talk and a day later there's an investment made. It's, I just want to set the expectation that yes, like we will 100% be able to help people put their funds to use, but we want to make sure, they're not overextending themselves, or they're having unrealistic expectations, or kind of we want to handle any kind of questions and preparation up front. So then the whole process going forward is so much smoother. It's sort of like when I've managed properties or worked with tenants and everything. It's just the preparation and kind of everything up front. You don't want to skip that, So it's just we have a full process and a system to follow, so that issues don't arise later on.
Absolutely perfect. Jason, I learned a lot. You gave us a very nice overview of Rochester. Never been there. Probably I will never travel there. I don't know. I would love to visit the Niagara Falls. I never know how to pronounce that in English. Really, really pumped to have you on the show. I also always remember when I talk to people from that region, there's a poem from a German author back in the days where we had to which we had to learn by heart in high school, and it's about a captain saving the entire ship and the passengers on board while he's basically navigating the cruise ship across the Lake Erie, and always calling like for Buffalo. That's it's almost there, but in the end he's dying. So it's always like some drama which I relate to when I think about Lake Erie and Lake Michigan over there. I appreciate your time. I really appreciate your story. I really also have always a lot of respect for people having served in the army. I really like your approach regarding your trajectory from, like being exposed to all this, probably like a lot of traumatic experiences which you had, and then going from there and taking the power and alchemizing it towards something very sustainable, serving clients in a very sustainable way, and in a very, very very, very nice way. I like that a lot. Really interesting, the housing market in Rochester. I think that there's a lot of hidden gems there regarding listings. Thank you so much for walking us through the entire purchasing process to understand that, and also the importance of getting pre-qualified and then going from there, and also making sure that you're not missing out on like the entire closing fees, that you're not only calculating, okay, the down payment and thinking that's it, but really making sure that you also have everything thought through. And finally, your entire investment thesis, I like it. I like the personal approach while being assisted with a very professional process with your SEC expert, SEC lawyer, and really making sure that everything is fully compliant while really going on a case-by-case basis. Jason, is there anything you'd like to add regarding concluding words which we haven't touched upon?
Yeah, I guess I just I tag on to the whole like Buffalo, Lake Erie. So in Rochester, we get all the lake effect snow from Lake Erie. So from November, December through March, you probably don't want to visit. So it's we basically work with investors so they can experience the benefits of investing in Rochester, but they don't have to experience the snow. So
that's a good one. I like that. How can people reach out to you if they are right now interested in contacting you and got curious?
Yeah, just check out meridianpointcapital.com and then reach out. We have different investment articles and books and a whole bunch of fun stuff.
Perfect. I like that. Jason, one more time, thank you so much for your time. And I'm sending the best regards to Rochester in New York State.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Thank you. Bye-bye. This video is brought to you by HalloCasa. Our tool transforms independent local real estate agents to global real estate agents. Create your own profile for free and get contacted by international investors. Sign up with the link in the description.